My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, at the beginning of today's gospel, we see you traveling. You are on your way to Jerusalem and you are passing through Samaria and Galilee. You're somewhere on the border between those two regions. Both of those regions are north of Judea, where Jerusalem is. So you're far to the north, Lord. Maybe not as far north as Nazareth, a town in Galilee that you would know well, not as far south as Sychar, the place where you would have had a very interesting conversation with a Samaritan woman. So still a few days away from Jerusalem, walking on foot. As you were going through Samaria and Galilee, you're about to enter a village, so you're still on the outskirts of the village. And then all of a sudden, you're met by a group of 10 lepers. Now, we know that they would not have been inside the village because the Mosaic law forbade them from going into the village. We read in Leviticus chapter 13 that the leper who has the disease shall wear torn clothes and let the hair of his head hang loose, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry, "Unclean, unclean." He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He shall dwell alone in a habitation outside the camp. So, Lord, here they are, lepers who had been cast out of their villages, cast out of their families, and who were suffering and slowly dying, outcasts from society, living on the outskirts of their towns. What were they doing there, Lord? Well, I suppose that even if they had been cast out of their families still loved them, and perhaps their families would leave food for them on the outskirts of their towns. And so all 10 of them came in to come and pick up some food from their friends and families, carry it back to their leper colony. And there they were, outside the village, and they meet you. And from far off, they raise their voices and they shout, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Lord, when you saw them, you said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." Now, it's interesting that St. Luke, in the way he presents this scene to us, he says that the lepers raise their voices. They shout out to you, Lord, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." But when you respond to them, Lord, Luke says that you simply say to them. Now, Luke doesn't say that you raise your voice and yell back at them. No, you simply say. It seems, Lord, as if you walked up close to that crowd of 10 lepers and you spoke to them at a close distance. This wouldn't be the first time, Lord, that you were not at all afraid to come close to a leper. In fact, if we go to chapter 1 of Mark, in one of your first miracles, we see a leper comes over to you and says, "Lord, if you will, you can make me clean." And moved with pity, you stretch out your hand, you touch the leper, and you say, "I will be clean." And the leprosy left the leper, and he was cured. Lord, perhaps now at a second time in which you encounter lepers, once again, you're not scared of them. You draw close, you speak with them, you say, "Go show yourselves to the priests." Now, what does that mean? Remember, these men, these lepers, are somewhere between Samaria and Galilee. Who knows? 2 or 3 days walking away from Jerusalem. What would they do in Jerusalem where the priests are in the temple? Well, they would walk into the temple, they would tell the priests that they had been cleansed of their leprosy, and then they would have to offer sacrifices and go through all sorts of really complicated rituals to be declared clean. If anyone is interested, you can go read about it in Leviticus chapter 14. It is confusing. Well, Lord, you tell them to go start walking to Jerusalem. And so they start walking. Were they clean, cured of their leprosy from the very first moment that you say, go show yourselves to the priests? Doesn't seem like it. Because later on, when they realize that they had been cleansed, then they celebrate, and one of them returns to give you thanks. So it seems like the 10 of them set off walking to Jerusalem without being cured. They simply trust you. When you say, go show yourselves to the priests, they understand what he means is by the time we get to Jerusalem, we will be cleansed, we will be healed, and we will be able to offer the sacrifices and to be declared clean by the priests. The 10 lepers set off walking. They believed you, Lord. They go with faith. Now, it's a 2 or 3 day journey, so we imagine that these lepers walked and walked and walked and then set up camp and then walked and walked and walked again. And at some point, I don't know if they were awake or if they were asleep, all of a sudden, one of them realizes, I'm cured. Maybe he looked at his hand and realized that he didn't have the gross, he wasn't missing fingers anymore. Or maybe one of the guys looked at the other guy and realized that, hey, his ear had fallen off and it's back in whole again. And then they start looking at each other and they realize they've been cured, and they're so happy. And probably 9 of them start running toward Jerusalem, overjoyed. They can't wait to show themselves to the priests to offer the sacrifice and to return to their families. But one of them doesn't go to Jerusalem. One of them returns instead toward the Samaritan town, toward the Galilean town, to where this former leper had found you. And the leper finds you, Lord, falls at your feet and thanks you. He was a Samaritan. Now, it's not really much of a surprise that this Samaritan didn't continue on to Jerusalem. That Samaritan certainly must have been taking his life in his hands by going down to the priests in the temple of Jerusalem. Imagine a Samaritan walking into the temple in Jerusalem. Now, that would have caused a scene. So, now that he was cured, instead of going down to the temple, he runs back to you, Lord. Lord, when you see this Samaritan, you say, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? And then, Lord, you said to the Samaritan, stand up and go. Your faith has saved you. It's interesting, Lord, that 10 lepers were cured that day. 10 were cured. 10 believed your word, 10 set out to Jerusalem, and at some point during their journey, 10 were cured. But only one was saved. You say to this Samaritan, stand up and go, your faith has saved you. You could say to the 10, go, your faith has cured you. But only to this one who returned to thank you, you say, your faith has saved you. 10 were cured, one was saved. Only the one who returned to give thanks to you. Jesus, how many blessings you have given us throughout today, or if we're listening to this as we brush our teeth right after we wake up in the morning, well, how many blessings we have received from you in the last 24 hours. Jesus, we ask for the grace to be able to see those blessings, and we ask for the grace to be able to follow the example of this Samaritan leper, or former leper, and to thank you for these blessings. We don't want to be like the other 9. We want to turn back to you and give you thanks for all of the blessings that you have given us throughout this day. Jesus, place within us the grace of gratitude. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.